Welcome to the sixth video of the series about the circle of fifths. In the last video we learned what are the modal scales and their brightness, what are the borrowed chords. In this video we are going to talk about the modulation, and we are going to know 5 ways to do that using secondary dominant, diminished 7, augmented chords, tritone and parallel keys. So let's dive into circle. First of all, what does it mean modulate? In music theory, modulation refers to the process of changing from one key to another within a piece of music. This change can create a shift in mood, tension or energy, enhancing the overall emotional impact of the composition. In the last video we emphasized the importance of alternating between tension and release. The alternation between uniformity and variety is equally important. A song must be uniform to be recognizable and catchy, but we have to introduce some variety not to be boring. A modulation is a great opportunity to increase variety. There are 2 types of modulation. Direct modulation with no preparation. The keys change directly. And the pivot chord modulation uses smooth transition. The keys change with a short transition. In this video, we will analyze the second case. The first way to modulate with the pivot chord is to modulate with a secondary dominant. We have seen in the last video that the secondary dominant is a type of chord that is built on the 5th degree of a diatonic scale. This technique creates a strong pull towards the new key and enriches the harmonic texture. To get the secondary dominant of any chords, we have just to move 5 minutes clockwise. Let's see an example. We want to modulate from C major to G major. Let's take the progression in C major with the 1, 6, 2, 5 pattern. C, A minor, D minor, G. This sets a stable and familiar foundation. Then the D chord is introduced. It is the secondary dominant of a G major, which creates tension and that resolves nicely to G major chord. After the D7 we move to G major key, where the progression continues with the 1, 6, 4, 5, G, A minor, C, D. This emphasizes the new key and provides a brighter, more uplifting sound. The second way to modulate with the pivot chord is modulate with a diminished 7 chord. We have seen in the last video that the diminished 7 chord functions as a leading tone to resolve a chord in the new key. This technique creates a strong sense of tension and resolution. To get the diminished 7 chord of any chords, we have just to move 25 minutes clockwise. Let's see an example. We want to modulate from C major to A minor. Let's take a progression in C major with a 1, 4, 6, 5 pattern. This established a familiar and stable sound. Then the B7 diminished chord is introduced. This chord functions as the 7th degree of the C major and can also be perceived as a transition to the new key, for instance A major. In fact, the B7 diminished has an harmonic sound with G sharp 7 diminished. They both have the same notes, and the G sharp 7 diminished can be considered as the 7th degree of the A major scale. So, after the B7 diminished or the G sharp 7 diminished, we move to the A major by resolving to A minor chord. This shift emphasizes the new key and provides a different emotional quality. We can finally establish the sound with A minor, E7, A minor. So, let's summarize which keys we can get with the 7 diminished chord. In a C major scale, the 7th is a B7 diminished. The chord has the same notes and the same sound of G sharp 7 diminished, F7 diminished, D7 diminished. We have just seen that we can get the A major or minor key using G sharp 7 diminished as a pivot chord. But we can also get the F sharp key using the F7 diminished chord, that is the same of B7 diminished. Or we can get the D sharp key using the D7 diminished chord, that is the same of B7 diminished. So we can say that starting from any scale, we can modulate to a new scale that is positioned on the circle 15, 30, 45 minutes clockwise, using the diminished 7 chord of the starting scale, because this chord has the same notes of the other 7 diminished chords. The third way to modulate with a pivot chord is to modulate with an augmented chord. Modulating with an augmented chord involves using an augmented triad to create a smooth transition to a new key. Let's see an example. We want to modulate from C major to A minor. Let's take the progression in C major with the 1, 4, 5, 1 pattern. This establishes the stable and familiar sound. Then the E augmented chord is introduced, which functions as a leading tone that resolves nicely into the next chord. After the E augmented chord, we get the A minor, where the progression continues with the tonic A minor, followed by the dominant E7, and leading back to A minor. This established the new key and enriched the harmonic texture. So let's summarize which keys we can get with an augmented chord, that is not a diatonic chord both for major and natural minor scale. The augmented chord has the same notes and the same sound of G sharp augmented and C augmented. We have just seen that we can get the A major or minor key using E augmented as a pivot chord, but we can get the C sharp key using the G sharp augmented chord, that is the same of E augmented. Or we can get the F key using the C augmented chord that has the same notes of E augmented. So we can say that starting from any scale, we can modulate to a new scale that is positioned on the circle 15, 35, 15 minutes clockwise using the augmented chord of the starting scale. Another way to modulate with a pivot chord is modulate with a tritone. A tritone is a musical interval that spans 3 whole tones or 6 semitones. This means that if you start on a note and move up 3 whole tones, 30 minutes in the circle, you will reach the note that form a tritone with the starting note. F sharp is a tritone for C and vice versa. Two are the main characteristics of the tritone. The first one is dissonance. The tritone is often described as having a dissonant quality which can create tension in music, and presence in scales. In every major scale there is one tritone, typically found between the 4th and 7th degree of the scale. Let's see an example. We want to modulate from C major to F sharp minor. The progression starts in C major with a 1, 6, 2, 5 pattern. C, A minor, D minor, G7. This established a familiar tone center. The G7 chord can be substituted with C sharp 7, which is a tritone away from G. This introduces a surprising shift in harmony, creating a sense of tension and anticipation. After the C sharp 7, we resolve to F sharp, followed by the dominant C sharp 7, which lead to tonic F sharp minor. Another way to modulate is using parallel key. We can say that the tonic is the pivot note. Let's see an example. We want to modulate from C major to C minor. The progression starts in C major with a common 1, 4, 6, 5 pattern. This establishes a bright and uplifting sound. The transition to C minor is initialized by introducing the G7 chord, which serves as a dominant chord leading to the C minor. This shift creates a dramatic change in mood. Once in C minor, the progression can continue with the chords like C minor, B flat, A flat, and G, which are the characteristics of the minor key and provide a more somber tone. Actually, there is another way to modulate, just using a modal scale. All modal scales have the same notes and the same chords. So, from a theoretical point of view, we can use any chord to modulate from a scale to another. Generally, it's quite common to modulate from a major scale, Ionian scale, to a minor scale, Aeolian scale. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want more, hit the subscribe button, smash the thumb up, and share it with anyone who might be interested. That's very important. In the next video, we'll see how to get intervals and chords looking at the circle. So stay in touch with us. See you over there. Bye.